This is the Minisforum V3 3-in-1 tablet. And I must say, this device has a lot going for it. They've made some really good choices in the design. However, there are a few things that I would be aware of if you're considering making a purchase of this device. Though this is a Microsoft Pen Protocol pen and screen compatibility, the sensitivity and the result is much better than I expected. The battery life, not so much as I expected. And there's a few decisions that were made, and I'm going to talk through them on what I love and what I don't like about this device. So definitely hang on for the entire video. We're going to go through build quality, usability, and the performance. Now, first and foremost, let's go through the unboxing and see what comes on this device. Right on top, the package that I included comes with a tempered glass screen protector. So that's really nice to make sure your screen does not get cracked. And here is the Minisforum itself. And then underneath, it looks as if this is the magnetic keyboard. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'll start by opening up the actual device, and then we'll move on into the other elements of the device. This video is brought to you by Asus ProArt laptops. The laptop's built from the ground up for creators. More information to come later in the video. All right, now let's go ahead and get this out of the box here. Nice thin device. Slide it out of its packaging. All right, let's dig a little deeper here. Let's see what else comes in the box. Okay, so we have our power adapter here and our cord. So really nice so far, got everything we need there. Now let's go ahead and check out the keyboard. I'm gonna move this off to the side here. And let's see what we have in regards to the keyboard. Sliding that out. Feels pretty good. Let's get that on there. Okay, so now that is attached. So there's the setup that we have. Don't have any power cable plugged in at the moment, but there's the setup. Pretty small keys, small indicator on the keycap. There's what you get. This is popping off. So the magnet, I wish was a little bit stronger on that. There's what you get as far as the device. I did not see a pen with the device. I'm gonna dig through this real quick. Doesn't look like there's a pen. Now, if there is, I'll be alerted by the Minisforum team, and then I'll show that moving forward. But there's not a pen so far, and I'm not gonna power it on, just doing the initial unboxing. While I've been using this device for a little while, I've noticed some things that are almost there, but not quite. For instance, I wish the magnet was stronger on this back panel. I find that when I go to move the device, it quickly and easily dislodges itself from the magnetized back, which makes this a little bit on the finicky side of using it on the day-to-day. I've noticed that the metal inside here feels a little on like the oddly like rigid side, like it goes and then it like pops into place. I wish it was a little more fluid. So just the quality of this is not as high as I had hoped for. It feels nice. It has a good material. It's definitely like a pleather material. But as far as the internal metal, it's just not my favorite element of the device. Now going ahead and looking at the keyboard is good, but not great. So it seems a little on the flimsy side around the edges. It just doesn't seem as rigid. And also what I noticed is that it seems like it flares up on each side of the trackpad. So it kind of dips down towards the middle here of the trackpad. It actually like flares up on the model that I have. Now this might not be true of every model, but it is something I noticed for my specific model. And I just didn't love that. It almost seemed bent. Now a concern that happened with the ProArt PZ13 is that when you would bend this, it would click. And it does that as well. So the PZ13 has a very similar design as this laptop tablet. And also if you bend it, it will initiate a click, but it's not as easy. The click happened easier on the PZ13 than it does. So this one almost feels a little bit more rigid. Now another thing is you can see the keyboard. The keyboard has some small keys and also small lettering. So that makes for an interesting, see even there, I'm just trying to like adjust this and it goes to pop off. I noticed the lettering, and so the keys are a little bit on the challenging side to hit just right. They feel a little small, like your fingers aren't, fully on top of them. So I would say I don't love the key size they have chosen. Also, the trackpad, it doesn't feel as rigid and secure to this flap as other devices in its category. Something like the Microsoft Surface Pro 11 or the PZ13 from Asus. They've done a better job at this like attachable keyboard than I would say the Minisforum V3. However, there are some things that I'm really impressed by. So don't think that this is, don't click away yet. Definitely watch through the full video here. The next thing I want to take a look at is the ports. So I'm going to go ahead and pop this off and pop this off. And let's go ahead and take a look at the ports. I really think they've done a great job with the ports. They've given us a headphone jack, which a lot of devices, the Microsoft Surface Pro 11 and the PZ13 do not have a headphone jack. I love this. I use wired Bose headphones for editing, and I absolutely love them, and I can't imagine not using those. I don't like Bluetooth headphones personally. We do have an SD card reader behind there, and we have a USB Type-C. Now this does charge via USB Type-C. It comes with 3 USB Type-C ports, not just 2, which is really nice. You have our power button on the right side, and we have our volume control on the left side. Now, one thing I really noticed about the Minisforum is that it has a very sturdy design of the actual device. It feels firm, it feels sturdy. I like the rounded edges. I think they've done a really good job on choosing the build materials to make this feel like a solid device. And also, I really love the matte black flat edge around the entire device. I think this was done very well, better than a lot of devices that I've seen. It holds very comfortable in your hands. And keep in mind, I'm going to be doing head-to-head reviews of this versus, say, the Microsoft, say, the Asus ProArt, so keep an eye on the channel for those reviews. All right, now the next thing you can see here is speaker grills. So we have speaker grills on the side of the device. Here's an audio sample so you can hear what these speakers sound like. And then of course we have ventilation coming out of the top of the device. And you can see here's the inputs on the bottom of the device. So the air gets pulled in through the back and then shoots out through the top. Now, there's one issue with this, and it doesn't actually cause as big of a problem as you would think. What happens when I put this on? How does the air get pulled through? So that's one thing to consider about the design. I believe they should have had an intake or an output vent elsewhere, not just on the back, because as soon as you put the cover on, you're now immediately covering up part of the ventilation. So just something to consider. However, when you consider the actual thermals of this device, what I did is I took a 4K clip, placed it in Premiere Pro, and exported out at full quality 4K settings. You can see that we have a fan noise of 28 to 32 decibels. And near the end of the export, it hit up about 35 decibels. And then for the export thermals, we had 62 to 65 degrees Celsius throughout the export. And then it bumped up to 85 right there at the tail end of the export. And then that's where the fans kind of picked up to cool it down. So it actually thermal manages quite well. And we'll see later in the video those export times. This video is brought to you by the Asus ProArt PZ13. At 9mm, it's barely thicker than my mobile device. It's equipped with a durable, color-accurate 3K OLED display, features a full-size SD card reader, it's pen compatible with the Asus Pen 2.0, and features the latest Snapdragon X Plus CPU, providing plenty of performance and battery life for the on-the-go creator. Check out my full review content of the Asus ProArt PZ13 with the playlist linked in the YouTube cards above or the description below. Thanks so much to Asus ProArt for sponsoring this part of the video. Keep in mind, this comes with a Ryzen 7 8840U CPU with AMD Radeon 780M integrated graphics and 32 gigs of RAM. So it has good spec out for a device that's built for creators. So just keep that in mind. And like I said, the thermal's handled well, even with the fact of it being covered by the back cover. Okay, we do have a webcam along the top bezel. Here's a sample of me using the webcam so you can see what it looks and sounds like. This is the webcam on the Minisforum V3 and a little sample of the audio for you as well. Okay, now let's go ahead and talk about the display. When I opened the device for the first time, I noticed that it had not quite a fully matte display, but it was not glossy. It has like this layer on top of it that has a nice little rough texture to it. And I think this is fantastic for digital artists because it has more of a paper-like feel. I'm gonna give you a full tour of the pen here in just a minute. But first and foremost, let's talk about what this screen is capable of. This is a 2.5K 2560 by 1600 at 165 hertz display. It reaches 533 nits of screen brightness at 100% sRGB, 90% Adobe RGB, and 99% DCI-P3 at a delta E of 1.52. So a fantastic display for creative professionals. Now, I'm gonna give you a full tour of me using the pen with this display right now. All right, so one thing I mentioned that I absolutely love is the matte display. This feels much more kind of like a paper experience than your traditional glossy display, but it still has a great brightness, as you'll find in the video. Now, one thing I also like is the sensitivity of the screen. What I'm learning more and more as I use these devices is the screen has a lot to do with how the pen responds. So this is the Asus 2.0 pen. This device that I received did not, the V3, I repeat, did not come with a pen. So I went ahead and bought, I had the Asus Pen 2.0. It's an MPP, Microsoft Pen Protocol. And this is the pen that I'm using right now for this test. Now, as you can see, I can push a heavy line, and then as I let off, it trails off pretty well. It's not as I would say it's not as incredible, of course, as the AES technology. That is definitely going to be something that works better as a whole. That's something found, on the Dell Inspiron 14 2-in-1. And where I find it most is at the end of your stroke when you let off. How does that stroke tail off? Is it very exact, or is it kind of just almost, I don't want to say random, but it just isn't as predictable when you're using MPP, Microsoft Pen Protocol technology. As far as the MPP equipped devices that I've used with the MPP pen, it's really good. You can see it trails off really nicely here at the end. So I can get a good stroke for you. You can see it has a nice trail there at the end. And then as I go light, you can see you can do a nice light stroke. You can see how light that is there. So it does have really good sensitivity, this device. I'm learning more and more that the screen is probably even more important than the pen that you have, how it responds to the pen. Okay, now let's talk about the battery life. This is a tablet, supposed to be on-the-go friendly. However, for whatever reason, they chose a normal kind of laptop CPU. And that's provided us with okay battery life, especially for a tablet. Qualcomm Snapdragon in the PZ and in the Microsoft Surface Pro 11, trying to get that name right, have upwards of like 15 plus hours of battery life. From the testing, I saw about 8.5 hours for productivity and almost 8 hours for video streaming playback, about 4 hours for Photoshop, and about 2 hours and 49 minutes for video editing. So I would say if there's one big kind of challenge that this laptop has, it's going to be the battery life. And I hope that maybe in future iterations, they'll be able to access a different chipset to give them better battery life, better efficiency. But that, I would say, honestly, that's like just one of the only performance faux pas that this laptop experiences. And I think that just might have been a supply issue. Maybe they weren't able to access specific chipsets. So that is something that I just want you to be aware of. Now, I know some of you may ask, can you upgrade this device? You cannot. You cannot. If you were savvy enough to take this thing apart, bless you, I was not going to try. There's no screws on the outside. I would not recommend taking this apart. So you will not be able to upgrade the RAM or the storage of this device, so just keep that in mind. If you're curious about the exact pricing and availability of the V3, you can head down in the description below and click those links. If you make a purchase, I'll get a small commission, but at no extra cost to you. Now, if you have further questions about the V3, I'd be more than happy to try and answer those questions in a future video. So please comment below and let me know some things you want to know about this device. Now, I'm going to continue to work through this review, so if I answer them, then just maybe delete your comment or abridge your comment. But then I will go ahead, read through the comments, and then do a later review answering some of those questions. All right, let's go ahead and check out the weight and thickness of this device. I've gone ahead and listed out all the different weights and thicknesses. So if you're to have this device by itself, no cover, no keyboard, it's going to weigh 2.08 pounds, 0.94 kilograms. If you go ahead and you add the charger, it's going to weigh 2.33 pounds. If you go ahead and you add the case, doing this on the fly here, bam. It now weighs 3.52 pounds, 1.6 kilograms. If you add the case and the charger, you are now up to 3.79 pounds, 1.79 kilograms. Okay, if you have just the device, it's going to be 9.8 millimeters thick, which is 0.38 inches. If you add the covers, snap and snap, it's going to be 0.78 inches thick at 19.81 millimeters. So those are the different sizes of this device. All right, without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into the performance of this device. Now, first and foremost, you're going to see the simulated benchmarks coming up on the screen as compared to other latest devices launched in 2024. And it performs pretty well. There's one area I see that the single core performance in Geekbench looks pretty solid for this device. However, in Cinebench, it's good. It's not like anywhere near the top of the charts, but it's pretty good. Our inside of Photoshop we score is 6,536. Solid score, near the top, looking really good. So we have good performance for this device inside of Photoshop. Now, as we move on to video editing, let's check out Premiere Pro. 0 drop frames for 1080p, 0 drop frames for full quality playback. And then looking at the 4K export time, 3 minutes and 54 seconds. One of the best export times that I've seen on my channel for laptops that don't have dedicated GPUs. So because this device is not running Qualcomm Snapdragon, it doesn't have to use an emulation to run Premiere Pro, and therefore it's going to perform way better than, say, the Microsoft Surface Pro or the Asus ProArt PZ13. So what you sacrifice in battery life, you actually gain back in performance. And so really it's like, which one do you want? You might think, well, this is an on-the-go device, so I want battery life. Or you might say, well, whatever, I'll just grab to a charger and have great performance. So really, this is where it comes down to a very personal decision of which is right for you. I even saw, I'm not going to pull up export, actually I can pull up export times. I even saw for 6K B-RAW export, only 23 minutes and 25 seconds. This doesn't even have a dedicated GPU. So I thought, wow, that's a pretty impressive device. And you can see that on the various export times chart coming up on the screen. And then again, as I mentioned earlier, the battery life is something where it's going to be a challenge to this device. Because it doesn't have, these latest ARM-based chips within it, battery life will be its big challenger. Now, by far, my big standout moments of this laptop is going to be Photoshop and video editing, for sure. Very, very good performance. Another standout is going to be the matte screen with really solid pen functionality with the Microsoft Pen protocol. Did not expect that because the PZ13 has poor pen functionality, in my opinion. It doesn't have as nice responsiveness. It doesn't create as nice and natural lines. This, for whatever they've done in the screen, knocks it out of the park. So hat off to Minisforum for really nailing the pen functionality of this device. I love that there's 3 USB-Cs, there is a SD card reader, and there is a headphone jack. Killed it. So really, really great device. I don't love the keyboard. I think they could have done a little bit better job with this, a little bit more solid and structured, a little bit larger keys, a little bit more of a rigid trackpad, but it would not keep me from buying the device. I think the other things that really stand out about this device make it a great buy for somebody looking for the features that I've talked about in this video. Now, don't miss out. Say, okay, this thing popping off, that is annoying. Magnetize this better in the future. That would be a recommendation to Minisforum from me in this video. If you want to get head-to-head reviews of this device versus others, click or tap the screen here. Otherwise, links are in the description. If you're like, man, this Minisforum is where it's at for me, I'm going to make a purchase. Please use those links. They help support the channel. No extra cost to you. That's what keeps this channel alive and the helpful content coming your way. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.